When the conversation about the future of Formula One began circulating through the paddock recently, one comment from Lewis Hamilton immediately stood out. Many drivers have shared opinions about the direction the sport is taking, particularly with increasingly complex hybrid technology and upcoming regulation changes. But Hamilton's perspective appeared slightly different from the rest of the grid. In fact, his view placed him almost alone in the debate about what the next era of Formula One might look like. And when you begin to examine the technical details behind his comments, it becomes clear why this discussion matters so much for the future of the sport. To understand Hamilton's position, we first need to look at how Formula One power units currently work. Since 2014, the sport has been using highly advanced hybrid engines, officially known as power units. These are not simple engines in the traditional sense. Instead, they combine a turbocharged internal combustion engine with two powerful electric motor systems and a sophisticated energy storage unit. The internal combustion engine itself is a 1.6-litre V6 turbocharged engine that produces roughly 750 horsepower. But the real complexity begins when you add the hybrid components. The first electric motor is known as the MGU-K, which stands for Motor Generator Unit Kinetic. This system captures energy when the car brakes and converts that energy into electricity. That electricity can then be deployed later to provide an additional boost of power. The second electric motor is called the MGU-H, or Motor Generator Unit Heat. Unlike the MGU-K, which harvests energy from braking, the MGU-H captures heat energy from the turbocharger. Instead of allowing exhaust gases to spin the turbo inefficiently, the MGU-H converts excess heat energy into electrical power that can be stored in the battery. Together, these systems make modern Formula One cars some of the most efficient racing machines ever created. In fact, the thermal efficiency of modern F1 power units has reached more than 50%, which is significantly higher than most road car engines. From an engineering perspective, this technology is extraordinary. But Hamilton's point is that the complexity of these systems has changed how drivers interact with the car. Drivers are no longer simply pushing the car as hard as possible on every lap. Instead, they must constantly manage how energy flows through the car's systems. Each lap involves decisions about when to harvest energy, when to deploy electrical power, and how to balance these factors with tire management and fuel consumption. To understand how much energy management affects performance, consider the limitations placed on the MGU-K system. Regulations allow the MGU-K to deploy a maximum of 120 kilowatts of power, which is equivalent to about 160 horsepower. However, drivers are only allowed to use a specific amount of energy per lap. That means they must carefully choose where to deploy that boost. For example, deploying energy on a long straight can increase top speeds significantly. But if too much energy is used early in the lap, the driver may have none left for later overtaking opportunities. This strategic balancing act has become a fundamental part of modern Formula One driving. Hamilton's concern is that this complexity sometimes moves the focus away from pure racing. Drivers must monitor multiple parameters while driving at extremely high speeds. The steering wheel alone contains dozens of controls that adjust brake balance, differential settings, energy deployment modes, and engine mappings. During a race, drivers frequently receive radio instructions from their engineers telling them to change settings on the steering wheel. These adjustments can affect how the car deploys electrical energy or how aggressively it harvests power under braking. The result is that driving a modern Formula One car involves not just physical skill, but also constant technical awareness. Hamilton has suggested that this level of complexity can make the sport harder for fans to follow as well. When viewers watch a race, it is not always obvious why one car suddenly gains speed on a straight, or why another driver slows down slightly through a corner. Often, the explanation lies in how energy is being managed. A driver might deliberately reduce speed in one section of the track in order to harvest energy for deployment later. To the casual viewer, this might look like a mistake or a loss of performance, even though it is actually part of a carefully planned strategy. Another technical element that contributes to the complexity is fuel management. Formula One regulations limit the amount of fuel that can be used during a race. Teams must complete the entire race distance using no more than 110 kilograms of fuel. This means drivers must balance outright speed with fuel efficiency. If a driver pushes too hard early in the race, they may consume fuel too quickly and be forced to slow down later. These constraints create a highly strategic environment where engineers and drivers work together to optimize performance across many variables. Hamilton's comments suggest that he recognizes the technical brilliance of this system, but also believes it introduces a level of complexity that can be difficult to appreciate from the outside. And the conversation becomes even more interesting when we look at the future regulations planned for Formula One. The next generation of power units is expected to increase the electrical component of the cars even further. The MGU-H system, which currently harvests heat energy from the turbocharger, is likely to be removed. However, the electrical power provided by the MGU-K will increase dramatically. Current plans suggest that the electrical system could provide close to 350 kilowatts of power in the future. That would represent a massive increase compared to the current 120 kilowatt limit. This change would significantly alter how drivers manage energy during a race. Instead of relying primarily on the internal combustion engine for propulsion, future cars may depend much more heavily on electrical power. Drivers would need to carefully manage battery charge levels to ensure they have sufficient energy available throughout the lap. For engineers, this represents an exciting challenge, but for drivers, it may increase the complexity of operating the car. Hamilton's comments highlight this tension between technological innovation and driver experience. On one hand, Formula One has always been about pushing engineering boundaries. The sport serves as a laboratory for developing technologies that eventually influence road cars. Hybrid systems, energy recovery technologies, and sustainable fuels are all areas where Formula One is contributing valuable research. On the other hand, racing has always been defined by the connection between driver and machine. Fans admire drivers who can push their cars to the absolute limit, braking later than their rivals and carrying incredible speed through corners. These moments showcase the raw skill and bravery that make motorsports so compelling. If the driving experience becomes too dominated by energy management and technical adjustments, some people worry that the emotional aspect of racing could diminish. Hamilton's position appears to reflect this balance. He appreciates the technical sophistication of modern Formula One, but he also recognizes the importance of keeping the sport accessible and exciting. Interestingly, his perspective may also be shaped by his experience across multiple eras of Formula One. Hamilton began his career in 2007, when cars were significantly less complex than they are today. During that time, drivers focused primarily on tyre management, aerodynamic balance, and race strategy. Hybrid power units did not yet exist, and energy recovery systems were far simpler. Over the years, Hamilton has adapted to each new generation of technology. He has driven cars with different aerodynamic philosophies, different tyre compounds, and increasingly sophisticated hybrid systems. This experience gives him a unique perspective on how the sport has evolved. When he says that the new era of Formula One may be becoming too complex, he is speaking from nearly 2 decades of first-hand experience at the highest level of motorsport. Of course, not everyone agrees with this viewpoint. Some drivers and engineers believe that complexity is an essential part of Formula One's identity. They argue that the sport should always represent the pinnacle of engineering innovation. From that perspective, hybrid power units and advanced energy management systems are exactly what make Formula One special. These technologies push the boundaries of what is possible in automotive engineering. But the debate about complexity versus simplicity is unlikely to disappear anytime soon. As Formula One continues to evolve, the challenge will be finding the right balance between technological progress and the purity of racing. Hamilton's comments serve as a reminder that drivers themselves are deeply involved in this conversation. They are the ones who must operate these incredibly complex machines while racing at speeds exceeding 300 kilometers per hour. Their insights provide valuable feedback about how regulations affect the driving experience. Whether one agrees with Hamilton or not, his perspective highlights an important question for the future of the sport. How can Formula One continue advancing technologically while still preserving the excitement and clarity that fans love? Now I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Do you think the increasing complexity of modern Formula One cars makes the sport more interesting? Or do you agree with Lewis Hamilton that the new era might be becoming too complicated? Let me know in the comments, because this debate could shape the future direction of Formula One.